The Airbus A340 was supposed to be Airbus's ticket into the big leagues. A long-haul four-engine jet designed to take on Boeing's dominance across the Atlantic and beyond. It won orders from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. But in the United States, nothing. Not Delta, not American, not United, not a single major U.S. airline ever operated one. It looks simple at first glance. Boeing was stronger, the A340 was less efficient. But the truth runs deeper than that. This wasn't just about engines or economics, it was about timing, politics, and Boeing playing chess, while Airbus was still figuring out the rules. So why did the A340 fail so completely in America? To understand, we need to go back to the early 1990s. Airbus had a massive problem. Boeing owned long-haul aviation. The 747 ruled intercontinental routes. DC-10s, MD-11s, 767s ruled basically everything else. Airbus was the outsider looking in. Airbus's solution, the A340. 4 engines, serious range, built for airlines needing long-distance capability before twin engines, ETOPS rules, finally loosened up. This was when crossing oceans meant you needed 4 engines for safety. The A340 wasn't just one plane either. Multiple variants, the A340-200, the A340-300, with larger 500 and 600 models following as part of the family strategy. European airlines loved it. Middle Eastern carriers jumped in. Asian airlines saw the value. But America, that was going to be Airbus's biggest challenge yet, and they had no idea what they were walking into. Here's what Airbus faced in the US market. American Airlines weren't just Boeing customers, they were Boeing partners. United, American, and Delta had massive 747 fleets worth billions. Every aircraft meant trained pilots, maintenance infrastructure, and spare parts inventories. Then came the McDonnell Douglas factor, US carriers flying DC-10s and MD-11s for medium-haul routes. When replacement time arrived, guess who was waiting? Boeing with the 767. Boeing made major US airlines launch customers and development partners for the 767. While Airbus was selling its finished A340, Boeing let US airlines help design its future aircraft, including the then upcoming 777. Which sounds more appealing to you? Boeing also wielded financial weapons Airbus couldn't match. Massive discounts, package deals, including spare parts, pilot training, and maintenance contracts. They could afford aggressive pricing because this wasn't just one sale. This was defending home turf. Boeing's 77 strategy was a calculated defense of its US market dominance, leveraging deep airline partnerships to lock Airbus out by offering customized solutions and aggressive pricing. The Airbus A340, despite its global appeal, couldn't penetrate this fortress as Boeing ensured US carriers saw it as a foreign gamble misaligned with their needs. Buy American wasn't just patriotism, it was also practical. Why complicate operations with a new manufacturer when your existing one could deliver everything you needed? But timing was about to become Airbus's biggest challenge. The A340 entered service in 1993. Should have been perfect timing, right? Dead wrong. By 1993, Boeing's 767s were proving that twin-engine aircraft could handle long-haul routes safely. ETOPS regulations were relaxing. Airlines realized 4 engines weren't necessary for ocean crossings anymore. Then came the significant challenge. The Boeing 77 launched in 1995. Not just any 777, a 777 developed with massive input from United, American, and other major US carriers. This aircraft offered everything US airlines had specifically requested. US airlines were already counting down the days until their 777S arrived. Why buy yesterday's 4-ein solution when tomorrow's twin-engine aircraft would be superior in every way? The A340 was trying to sell into a market that had already moved on, and that's where things became difficult for Airbus. Let's be honest about what happened next. The Boeing 77 didn't compete with the A340. It dominated any chance the A340 had in America. United welcomed the first Trip 7 in 1995. The aircraft exceeded every expectation. Excellent range, outstanding fuel efficiency, and built exactly to U.S. Airlines specifications. American Airlines followed immediately. Delta joined the party. These weren't just purchases. They were confidence votes in Boeing's ability to deliver precisely what U.S. Airlines needed. The Trip 7 had something else crucial: future growth potential. Boeing promised larger variants, longer ranges, and continuous improvements. U.S. Airlines could build extra long-haul strategies around this one aircraft family. Meanwhile, the A340 looked increasingly outdated. Its 4 CFM56 engines were reliable, but less efficient and very underpowered compared to the Trip 7's twins. In an industry where fuel costs determine profitability, the Trip 7's twin-engine efficiency was a game-changer. In a two-class configuration, the Boeing 77200 and 77200ER could carry around 314 passengers. The A34000 around 335. However, the Trip 7 had a massive fuel burn advantage, saving airlines millions annually on long-haul routes. This efficiency edge, combined with lower maintenance costs for 2 engines versus 4, made the Trip 7 an irresistible choice for U.S. carriers. U.S. Airlines didn't just prefer the Trip 7, they actively avoided the A340. It became a symbol of European engineering that didn't align with American operational priorities. But there's one fascinating exception that proves everything we've discussed. Northwest Airlines actually ordered 20 A340s and 10 A330 options in March 1987. They were going to be North America's launch customer of the type. This could have changed everything, but Northwest put their order on hold after the A340 engines were replaced by the less powerful CFM56. After the Gulf War and the associated fuel price spike, the economic recession, and a cash flow crisis from a leveraged buyout hit demand, Northwest canceled its A340 order on December 7, 1992, less than a year before A340 service entry, just as the 77 program was gaining serious momentum. Northwest's cancellation wasn't just economics, it was about recognizing that better alternatives were coming. Instead of A340s, Northwest later ordered 24 A330s in 2001, some of which later joined Delta's fleet. But the A340 had an even deeper problem with U.S. operations. The A340 solved needs that U.S. airlines simply didn't have. European airlines needed ultra-long range connecting smaller European cities worldwide. Asian carriers wanted prestige and capacity for flagship routes. Middle Eastern airlines needed range for global hub positioning. U.S. airlines, they operated completely differently. Their longest routes, New York to London, LA to Tokyo, were handled perfectly by existing 747s. Medium-haul international routes worked fine with 767s with Trip 7s promising even better performance. U.S. airlines didn't need the A340 specific range capacity combination. Their networks were structured differently. Passenger loads were different. Operational priorities were different. The A340 answered questions most U.S. airlines weren't asking. While Airbus built aircraft for global markets, U.S. carriers had specific operational needs that the incoming Trip 7 would serve better. The A340's foreign design made sense for many airlines worldwide, but U.S. carriers prioritized twin-engine efficiency for their route structures. The fundamental mismatch between what Airbus offered and what U.S. airlines needed would persist until Airbus learned to design aircraft specifically for American operational priorities. Aircraft purchases aren't just business decisions, they're political statements. Boeing represented American aerospace supremacy. Every congressional hearing about jobs, every manufacturing discussion, every union concern, Boeing was the answer. Airbus, they were European challengers threatening American dominance. Every A340 sale meant American jobs going overseas. Boeing made sure everyone understood this perfectly. The A340 became known as Europe's jet. Airbus's challenge to Boeing in Boeing's home territory. Every international route with an A340 instead of a 747 or Trip 77 was viewed as European aerospace defeating American aerospace. U.S. airlines understood this symbolism completely. Choosing A340s wasn't just aircraft purchasing, it was declaring where loyalties lie. Boeing kept this narrative front and center. Every missed A340 sale became proof of Boeing's continued American market dominance. Lack of U.S. orders created self-reinforcing cycles. Management could point to absent U.S. carriers in A340 customer lists as validation for staying with Boeing. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Airbus didn't abandon the U.S. market after the A340's lack of success. They took detailed notes, learned critical lessons, used those lessons to completely transform their approach. When developing the A350, everything changed. Airbus executives engaged directly with U.S. airlines like American to understand their needs. What did U.S. carriers actually want? What were their real operational challenges? The feedback was invaluable. U.S. airlines wanted twin-engine efficiency. They demanded double-digit fuel burn improvements over existing aircraft. They wanted aircraft designed for their hub and spoke operations, not European point-to-point models. Airbus delivered exactly that. The A350-900 offers around a 25% fuel burn improvement over the A340-300. Twin engines meant dramatically lower maintenance costs. Most importantly, Airbus approached U.S. airlines as development partners. It incorporated input from carriers like Delta Airlines on cabin design, operational systems, and even maintenance protocols. The same strategy Boeing had used successfully with the Trip 7. The A350 strategy worked well. U.S. Airways had ordered A350s in 2007, which American Airlines inherited in their 2015 merger, marking American's first Airbus widebody fleet through acquisition. However, it never materialized in actual deliveries as American Airlines famously canceled the order. Delta ordered 25 A350-900s in 2014. The airline's executives praised the aircraft. United Airlines eventually joined with initial A350-900 orders, which were later converted to the A350-100. Unfortunately for Airbus, the airline's current backlog includes 45 A350-100 with no definitive delivery date. Airbus failed to sell a single A340 to U.S. majors. Yet within 2 decades, their A350 secured orders from U.S. Airways, Delta, and United, proving the European planemaker has cracked the U.S. market by learning from past mistakes. This turnaround showcased Airbus's shift from European outsider to a trusted partner for American carriers. The aircraft Airbus couldn't sell to U.S. airlines. The A340 taught them everything needed to build the aircraft it could eventually get into U.S. fleets. The A350. The A340's U.S. market failure had consequences extending far beyond aircraft sales. For Airbus, it delivered important lessons about timing and market positioning. It built capable aircraft, but it completely misjudged what markets actually wanted and when. For Boeing, it validated its deep U.S. airline integration strategy. 77 success. It wasn't just about good aircraft. It was about building the right aircraft at the right time for the right customers. A 340's absence from U.S. fleets meant U.S. passengers, pilots, and aviation professionals had minimal exposure to Airbus widebody technology. This knowledge gap would persist for years until Airbus used everything they learned to change the game completely. The A340 never flew in American colors, but its failure paved the runway for the A350 to soar with most major U.S. carriers, turning Airbus's defeat into a lasting victory. That's why not a single U.S. airline ordered the A340, and why that failure ultimately made Airbus stronger than they'd ever been before. Hey, before you go, The YouTube algorithm thinks you're going to like this video next, so why not check it out?